The state of crime across North Central remains complex. While some accuse farmers and herders, others are pointing to terrorists from the Sahel region. Well, the point that all stakeholders agree to this is that whenever crime goes unpunished, it evolves to impunity. So tonight, we dive into the understanding of more of the path of sustained peace across Nigeria's North Central region. Data scientist Babajide Ogunsowo, who is the founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, of course, is here to share facts, the analysis and insight about the latest security trends across Nigeria's North Central region. Babajide, thank you very much for joining us on the News at 10. I see these matchboxes and I'm scared. Are you burning our studio?
Certainly not.
Okay.
Certainly not.
But if we cannot define who these criminals are, how do we even stop them?
And I really guess that's where we'll probably start from, because the problem we are facing today isn't that we can't define them. The problem is, are we accurately defining them? And there are three ways to define what is exactly going on in the North Central. There are some that say this fire is purely caused by farmers-herders clash. And so if it is purely farmers-herders clash, the fire goes off easily because we can end it by looking at the Land Use Act, grazing issues, urban renewal and development concerns, possibly thinking outside the box by even chipping of cows. So clearly some define it as a fire that can go out easily because it is farmers and herders. There are some that say this fire is a bit more dangerous because it is fire caused by
a group.
Terrorists.
Okay.
And if it's terrorism, then it's more dangerous. And that's because we have to consider changing tactics, we have to consider evolving strategies, and clearly there are a lot more people that will have to be involved. First category, farmers, herders, some define it as purely that, but the bigger fire is terrorism. And here's to the most dangerous fire, which we all have to be worried about. Not farmers, herders, not terrorists, it is terrorists who are hiding behind the mask of herders. That is the challenge. Terrorists hiding behind the masks of herders. Terrorists claiming to be herders. And that fire has a lot of smoke and requires a lot more effort by the security agents, because that is really when we face the challenges of bringing in the religious leaders, traditional leaders, looking at the problems where they are coming from, the Sahel region. So it becomes a bit more complicated. And if we look at what exactly has gone on this week, what we find is a lot of people are put the blame in one of these three boxes. Some have said, this is purely farmers and herders. Some have said this is pure terrorism. And if you are saying what we face is terrorists who claim to be herders, and until we accurately define this problem across Nigeria's North Central region, it will be hard to get a solution. And quickly later tonight, I'll share to you which of these boxes I think is where the problem lies.
Okay, so talking about where the problem lies, there are several estimates about the number of fatalities across Nigeria's North Central region. What figures can Nigeria rely on at this moment?
So there are three figures we can rely on, and I'd like to take them step by step. The first is, when we talk about Nigeria's North Central region, and I would like you to listen carefully to this, especially what has gone on in Benue State. Going by our history, we started with Benue, and it was Benue that gave birth to Plateau State. And from Plateau State, we had Kogi and Nasarawa State. So the point I'm making is, when we talk about the Benue, the reality is it is made up of 4 states: Benue State, Plateau State, Nasarawa State, and Kogi State. And these 4 states have a land area of 121,000 square kilometers, approximately more than half the land area of the North Central region. So the first fact is, when we have concerns in the Benue, the reality is what we are saying is half of the North Central region is concerned. Now, the second point, Anne, is that, yes, we have estimates from if we are to look at it from the perspective of farmers, herders, then we understand exactly what is going on in the Benue. And if you take a look at the facts, it allows us to see that clearly when it comes to agricultural land, Benue is the top state across Nigeria's northern region. So what we have in front of us is the top 7 states with the highest farm concentration in Nigeria. And across the top 7 states, what you will notice is 6 of them are in southern Nigeria, and that one state that comes out as having the highest farmer concentration. And by farmer concentration, we're talking about number of farmers per square meter. Based on the evidence we have today, Benue has approximately 70 farmers per square kilometer. No other state in northern Nigeria has those sort of numbers. So clearly we understand there's an issue when it comes to that is the major occupation in Benue. However, Anne, here's the third point which a lot of Nigerians and a lot of families are concerned about, and that is looking at the number of abductions, armed conflict, and terrorist attack across Nigeria's north-central region. And if you take a look at those numbers, here's what you find. And these numbers are coming from ACLED, the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data, because they have the most accurate reports on such cases globally. Here's what they say. In the first half of 2023, across Nigeria's north-central region, there were 963 fatalities between January and June 2023. Looking at the numbers we have in front of us, it shows that in the first half of 2023, Benue and Plateau states accounted for 55% of total fatalities in the north-central region. In the first half of 2024, total fatalities, 982 fatalities across the north-central region. However, from the ACLA data, what they say is that the numbers of fatalities from Benue and Plateau grew to 57% compared to 55% in the first half of 2023. Now, let's take a look at what's happened in the first half of 2025 as at June 13th. And this is from ACLED. They say out of the 846 fatalities it has recorded across the north-central region, the Benue and Plateau accounts for 72%. So if you look at the trends, 2023, Benue and Plateau accounted for 55% of total fatalities in the north-central. In 2024, Benue and Plateau accounted for 57% of total fatalities across the north-central region. This year, the Benue and Plateau is accounting for 72% of total fatalities across the north-central region. Again, don't forget how I talked about how we should think about it. Benue gave birth to Plateau State, Plateau gave birth to Kogi and Nasarawa State. In all, these 4 states account for more than half of what we classify as the north-central region.
But when we look at these things in recent times, how much success has been recorded in fighting terrorists in the country?
Now, despite all this bad news, and there is some good news. And if you take a look at the numbers that we have, especially since the president came in May 29, 2025 to date, it shows that we are making some progress, especially looking at what we classify as terrorists taken out of circulation. And by terrorists taken out of circulation, we are looking at the summation of terrorists killed within the last 2 years and terrorists arrested. Those numbers, 20,408. And what does 20,408 mean? It means on an average, we are taking out terrorists of approximately 30 a day. Averagely, 30 terrorists are being taken out every day, killed and arrested. The challenge we have, which is what the Nigerian Armed Forces are saying, is that it seems that a lot of these terrorists, number of those that are coming into terrorism are more than number of those that are being taken out. And so there are concerns that it seems that after all these years and after all these years of killing and arrest, why are all these terrorists not yet dead? And that's because a lot more are coming in from Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. So we really have to, again, just as we started, we need to define the problem very accurately.
Yeah. But what should security be doing at the moment as we speak? Just very short, very quickly.
Before we quickly go into what security should be doing, there are things the security agencies are already doing. The first is they've made it clear that to solve this problem goes beyond just the security agencies. It requires an all-of-society approach. So that's the first thing that is right, which they are doing. The second thing is we seem to see a lot of more creative thinking, a lot of new ideas. One of such ideas is we have to all dialogue on our borders? Should it be fenced or should it not be fenced? What are the consequences if we attempt to fence, and what are the consequences if we attempt not to fence our borders? Finally, looking at what the Chief of Defense Staff said this week, especially when it comes to justice, it's made it clear: without consequences, crime becomes culture. So clearly, everything that is going on in the North Central, there has to be consequences for crime, and that speaks to the judiciary.
All right. Thank you very much. I know we have limited time, but we'll talk more in the subsequent news at 10.
Oh, yes, we have to look at what exactly is going on across the other 5 regions.
Okay, please carry your matchboxes. Anyway, this founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, thank you very much, Babajide Gusau, for your time on the news at 10.
We'll do this again next week.
We will.